Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ken. I am a counsellor helping men and women overcome their mid and quarter life crises and also gain a bit of clarity over their relationship challenges. And this channel is mostly about helping gay men to overcome the various issues and challenges that we face in order to have better relationships with ourselves and with others. Now, for today's topic, I was inspired to talk about this idea of, does the person like me because they're being so kind to me, or is that just their nature? Is that just because they're a very kind person? And it's that idea of like, when you like someone, particularly a guy, he may be just very friendly and they're just consistently friendly, and it does start to make you feel like, wow, this person's really nice. I really like the way they're treating me. Is there more behind this? And if so, I want to know, because it's kind of feeling good. If there's videos of any help, please like and subscribe. It greatly helps me out. And if you're looking to work with me, you can always click on the link below to book a session. Now, when it comes to our community as gay men, in my experience as a white gay man who's also a counsellor, I have noticed that there have been times in my life and in my clients' lives where we've been confronted with a guy who's been really kind, outgoing, they're attractive, they're also very agreeable, and there's someone who typically makes a lot of effort to hang around with us. And it's understandable if we've had very minimal positive reinforced male experience that we start to feel nice and also warmly towards this individual, this man, who has been so kind and consistent and caring. It's almost like we've never had that before, and it just feels really, really, really good. And here begins to create the challenge that we face, which is, are they just that way, or is there more to this? The thing to understand is that if it's someone's nature to be outgoing, kind, compassionate, with almost no thought put into their actions, it's just sort of the way they are without any ulterior motive, then it can be very confusing to someone who's never really had those positive reinforced experiences before. And it can also cause problems too down the line where it may be misconstrued as potential romantic gestures. I've definitely been on both sides of the street with this one, where giving compliments out to guys or being consistently nice has resulted in people being confused, understandably. And I've been on the reverse of that too, where I've definitely found that I've been quite attracted by a guy who's consistently shown up for me, and I've been like, listen, just want to clear the air. You know, what's going on here? Is it just your nature, or is there something more to this? So I'll get into that in a minute. So I'm going to start with the guy who you're interested in, who is being consistently kind. I can speak for myself that generally when I am doing things for others, it's just part of my nature. Like if I'm going to do something nice for someone, I usually don't put much thought into it. Like it's just like, oh, you know, I feel like doing this because it feels good. And for me, you know, if I notice something that looks good, I might point it out and say, hey, I really like that shirt, or I really like this. I am a bit more mindful of that now, because I know that back in the day when I used to give compliments to guys who are gay, it could be construed as flattery, and that then became, I suppose, confusing for men where they were like, I'm not sure where this is going. And so I've had to be very mindful of my behavior and actions towards men in terms of my interaction with them, just to be very clear and transparent, whilst also still trying to be authentic in my overall disposition towards guys that I'm around. Now, with all that out of the way, I want to share experiences I've had where I have been confused and have developed feelings as a consequence of my interaction with other men. I know for me that if I've spent a lot of time with a guy, and I'm talking like upwards of 3 times a week with a guy, I'm also talking a lot about deep emotional things. We're having very meaningful conversations where I'm starting to feel like I'm part of that man's inner world. And we may not necessarily be doing anything physical with each other. It's more just the fact that we are starting to approach that emotional intimacy that is more common in a relationship where you are having more romantic feelings. Sometimes it doesn't happen with guys just because they don't have that particular je ne sais quoi, that energy or that chemistry that typically is required to be there for romantic feelings. It could just be that that elusive element is that you just particularly like this guy, like they're, you know, reasonably attractive, and you're spending enough time with them and getting to know them. And I really feel like the point of this is that we can't always account for feelings that we develop as a consequence of spending time with a guy. Even someone who's reasonably self-loving, someone who has a reasonable modicum of trust in themselves, and also has had good experiences with men, may still also get a little bit squishy and also develop feelings for a man who they're spending a significant amount of time with, even if there's nothing physical happening between them. It's just because that's just the way it is. And we can't always account for that. So it's important to be mindful that when it comes to our interactions with people, particularly around emotional intimacy and also getting to know someone, it's very common for feelings to emerge. And also if there aren't boundaries around that, it can also mean that you've actually crossed the threshold of being someone's friend to actually kind of being a lover in disguise. And that in and of itself isn't going to be healthy for you or this other person. So in terms of actionable steps, I think one of the wisest things you can do is if you're already getting to that stage of feeling a little bit confused, it's good to address it. And to do that, it's not always an easy thing to do, just to be upfront and clear and say, hey, I'm noticing that a lot of these actions are happening. I'm a little bit unsure as to where it's going. I just want to be clear just so that way I don't feel confused is a good approach. I've had people do that to me and I'm actually super appreciative of it because if it's done early enough, at least I feel like there's still the opportunity to develop a professional or a friendly relationship where there's more boundaries around that, so we're more mindful of how we interact with one another too. Because by that point, you have the opportunity to correct. You have the opportunity to be like, I've just noticed that me spending this amount of time with you is contributing to a bit of confusion where there shouldn't be. So let's just take a step back from there. And I want to be clear, that's on the condition that both of you are on the same page, especially if the other guy is not gay. It is very easy for a potentially straight man to be the subject of this confusion. And a lot of straight men who are very friendly towards men may not even be aware of how their actions are contributing to that because they just don't know any better, and I guess it is what it is. So it's very important not to get to the point of confusion where you're like, are they or aren't they gay? Because that is a dead-end street and it's not worth going through. And that's the subject of another video that I'll do another time. But I think the key thing that I want to say is that, if you're in a situation where you're developing feelings, or at the very least you're confused about where you stand with a man who's most assuredly straight, you want to address that sooner rather than later and say, hey, just to let you know, I'm starting to feel a little bit, confused about where things are going. Just wanted to bring it to your awareness just so that way we can just be more mindful about interaction together. Because at the end of the day, you can't change his sexuality and you also can't determine whether or not he's gay or not. Overall, the importance of this video is really just to illustrate the fact that when there is ambiguity, it's best to clear it up as soon as possible. If the guy that you are getting confused over is also feeling the same way about you, is potentially interested in you beyond just being friendly, then amazing. You can have a conversation where you talk about what that could potentially look like and how to navigate it from there. But I do think that it's one of those things where to get clarity is better than to be in a situation of unrequited feelings. That position is absolute torture. And I know from my own experiences, I have definitely stepped back from people and actually told them what's going on to let them know. And I've had the same thing happen to me. It's important because if we don't receive that feedback, how do we know what we're doing to people and how it's potentially impacting them? To wrap up, ambiguity can happen at any time. If we find we're with a guy who's reasonably attractive, has a nice personality, and is also doing a lot of things kindly for us, then yeah, it's probably gonna cause us to feel a little bit confused, and it's also gonna make us feel good. But the key thing is to be very clear and upfront with that confusion, so that way you can wipe that slate clean and not have to worry about that. Because if it's gonna disrupt your relationship with the person, believe me, it will. So in that sense, it's good to start practicing that communication of being like, I'm feeling this as a consequence of these actions. Just want to hear where your head and your heart are at, just so that way I'm not confused. Obviously phrase it differently to how I'm phrasing it now. But the point is that freeing yourself from that confusion is liberty. Other than that though, I hope that this video has been helpful. Of course, I can't really provide with clarity if a person genuinely likes you or not. I think that's just such arbitrary stuff. But if this video was helpful, please like and subscribe. And if you're looking to book a session with me, please feel free to click on the link below.